Well, we are recently back from a holiday in Pembrokeshire, South Wales. And on that holiday, we visited some railways, as you'd expect, or at least one railway in the most recent one. And so in the next few days, I'll be posting a video of those railways. And you may well see them now by the time you're looking at this video, depending on the timescales of me posting. Now, one of those railways was the Vale of Rheidhol railway, a most beautiful little railway running up a valley in that part of the world. It's not in Pembrokeshire, that one. It runs from Aberystwyth to Devil's Bridge. We didn't go on a train actually in Pembrokeshire, but we had to go and visit that one. And while there, if you can see it over my shoulder, I did buy something. And so this is really a reveal of what I've bought. So not really an unboxing, but a little chat about the loco I bought, which is called a Falk. It's a live steam loco by Bowande Wuhu Manufacturing. Now I have got a similar loco to this one. This is the, I don't know, I'm going to guess it's about the second release, impression, production run of this loco, and I've got the last one of that run at the price that it was made available by the Chinese company to UK retail outlets. The one I got, which is a porter, which is very similar to this apart from the winch on the front, was a fair bit cheaper, and I bought it rather than the Falk, not because I preferred the look of it, but because in fact it was cheaper to buy it without this bit on the front. And I thought it's a non-functional but interesting looking piece of simulation of a steam pump, not steam pump, steam winch. The other one, the first runs of these, the price was at a certain level. They came in a plain cardboard box with kind of a few packing pieces inside, plain card packaging inside. This is now in a full colour glossy printed box with a picture on the front and a outline diagram on the back, which you can't see very well in this, and with a glossy instructions. If I remember rightly, the instructions were not quite as glossy as this on the other one. Still with Chinglies, as I call it. Why they don't employ me to write the instructions for them, I don't know, because they could improve the English language of the instructions an awful lot, whether it's for here or the USA. Obviously, the English is for the American market as well as the UK market. So it's based on an actual real locomotive that is preserved somewhere, and the similarity is quite high, and therefore it's quite a reasonable representation. And the Porter loco was a reasonable locomotive based on a real locomotive. So they're not completely freelance. And so there's the instructions, full colour instructions, fairly simple instructions. Let me take it out of the box without holding the camera in one hand. So the difference from, let me call it, the first release is that you've got it in a purpose-made polystyrene packet with Velcro straps around. Once you've undone those two straps, the top lifts off nicely. The model itself is protected from polystyrene with a plastic bag, and you can lift the model out of its polystyrene base. So there it is, the first look at it that you get from here. You've got an etched maker's plate on the side there. You can see the pressure valve inside. You can see the water sight tube in there. It does have a functioning whistle on top, and this bit on the front, nicely made out of brass. If I look at the other side, you'll see this piston and mechanism which have been made nicely on there. And then we've got the I think it's Stephenson's valve gear underneath there, and a representation of wood grain on the side, and you can open the lid to gain access to the inside. You've got the gas tank with the gas fill point for your lighter fuel, gas control valve, steam control valve. Somewhere down there, there's the steam oil reservoir. And oh no, well this is a water reservoir because it has something that the other one didn't. Yeah, we'll look for the steam oil reservoir later. The lever for forward and reverse down there, and yes, so I'll have to tip it on its side. So tip it onto its side. There we go. See underneath, you see the mechanism with the connection to the linkage, which changes direction. They've got the eccentrics running onto there, controlling your slide valve in the upper box there. And on here you've got another eccentric controlling a little pump, which will top up your water boiler. Now in this case, you adjust it by put a screw slot head in there to open it, slightly different to the video that I've seen. And the main criticism of this is that the tube here is very low down, very close to anything you might have at the side of the track. All of this here is nicely machined. I would hazard that having the actual driving force so far away from the wheel is not ideal, but there we go. That's how it is, and there's not a lot we can do to change that. I'm certainly not going to try. And this will be the steam oil reservoir at the front there, which may be slightly different to what I'd seen on something else. Let me just turn it around. I think that says Mashut and Cantrell National Ironworks, San Francisco. And so here we have the winch, and what you have coming through here represents a piston driving this flywheel, which would drive the winch. Representation of a lamp on the front of it, and in front of your drums, your winch friction drums here, you have a couple of functioning pulleys. The pulleys here on this beam actually turn, which is quite interesting. So quite a few bits of nice engineering which are just there, not necessarily non-functional. There's a nice steam valve on that side which I'm seeing. That's a pressure valve, which they say is what did they say? Adjustable. Shouldn't be adjusting it, should be preset, factory preset to the working pressure, but there we go. So back head wise, I don't think there's any more to see, except you can see the gas burner in there, just in there if the light contrast is enough. Yeah, if I turn it round, look at that other thing. Oh yes, there's a screw down there for filling up the steam oil. Yeah, steam oil in there. Let's turn it round. Yeah. So there's even a little steam valve here on the pipe that runs. Oh, that's of course, that's the steam dome. And so the whistle is mounted on the steam dome. So where does that regulator go to? Well, I'm wondering. Interesting, isn't it? So there must be, that's a steam regulator, something internal, because there isn't the normal pipe work from the steam regulator to the cylinders. It comes out of the steam dome, and you've got a valve here. which is a non-functioning. I think it's just for display. Interesting, but there we go. Because we can't see inside it, we can't see how that regulator controls the steam that comes out of the top of the boiler and the steam dome to get to the pistons. There we go. Been rattling on about it as I have a look at it. At some point, it's the cool of the evening now, I will put some oil in it, oil all the moving parts, fire it up, and give it a run around the track here, and we'll see what it's like. Some of the things that I like about this are the fineness of the modelling. If you look at this bracket that holds the bell, that's really quite a fine bit of ironwork on there, and that's a nice hand valve on there. This isn't any steam regulator, this is a blow down, or the way of emptying steam from the boiler, because it just goes underneath to a vent pipe. But to just say a little bit more about that fineness of the engineering, just look at the representation of the eccentric, what would you call them, big ends, kingpins, call them in a car, because you got representation of the split bearing for the big end, as it were, on the crank, and even tiny representation of the nuts and bolts. This reminds you that this same company, as well as making this entry-level locomotive, makes some highly detailed 3,000, 5,000 pound steam locomotives of British outline, and American I suppose, steam trains, steam locomotives, to a very high standard, and they're quite prized, so they're quite detailed scale live steam models, and so this hints at their engineering at that sort of level, with things assembled properly with nuts and bolts, etc. And just that representation, this is performing a similar function. It's a crank, but much cruder. Sorry, I didn't throw the cameras, I can't see the screen. Purely functional. So you've got the cranking mechanism pushing up there, and that's very much more just a simple functional thing for your water pump, for you top up the feed water. That is far more detailed, and not exactly to scale, I would say, but a much better representation, although functionally it's not that far different from this one. So very nicely done, complimenting them on that one. So there we go. Nice to be able to get out. It was too hot during the day to consider doing anything, and it may now be a little bit too late to consider steaming up. I'll review that